All right, Badger football is bad, and Chris McIntosh upset the Badger Nation with his letter to season ticket holders and donors. He did that earlier this week, and it got me thinking. It got a lot of people thinking, and I want to really get down to where do we think the problem is? Because Chris McIntosh, and this is kind of like that internet meme of like, me? I'm the problem? Like he says, like, hey, we don't have enough money to fire Luke Fickell, but trust me, now we're going to raise enough money to give Luke Fickell a good enough team so then they'll win. So I want to get to asking the question, is this a name and likeness problem for the Wisconsin Badgers? Like they just don't know how to run name and likeness, they don't know how to fundraise, they don't know how to distribute it? Or is it a coaching problem? With the Wisconsin Badgers. 844-770-3776. That's Carl's Talking text line. This is more. Our Signing Limited poll question is, do the Badgers have a bigger problem with coaching or NIL?
Well, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? Like, Luke Fickell can't coach kids to be great if he doesn't actually have great talent, which you're not going to get great talent in today's world if you don't have good NIL, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know what the proper answer is here, but I think if the university has enough money, which is what Chris McIntosh is essentially begging for, is to get more money for NIL. If they have enough money to recruit and bring in great talent, then how good does your coach need to be? Like, if they were able to bring in, I don't know, who's a superstar in college football today? Like let's say a superstar quarterback. Who's a superstar quarterback? Or what could really elevate this team?
Mendoza from Indiana.
Okay, so if they could bring in him, say they had to pay him $1 million. So if they could get $1 million and bring him in, then do you think that if Luke Fickell remained the head coach at the University of Wisconsin, would the Wisconsin football team and Mendoza be as stellar as, let's say, Indiana? Or is Luke Fickell just not a good coach, at least here in this landscape of Wisconsin football, that they need to get rid of him and bring in NIL money?
According to Google, 1.6 million is his NIL valuation. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but Ryan, I'll let you hop into this. I don't think Luke Fickell, Jeff Grimes gets this performance out of Mendoza.
No, because the rest of the roster and the rest of the team in Indiana is also very, very good. And they have NIL money, right, and they have the dedication and the funds to fund the rest of that roster, too. Unlike the Badgers. I mean, the Badgers were in on trying to get Fernando Mendoza in the portal, and they got outbid for him. Like, Billy Edwards was probably, I would say, like, probably 10th, 11th, 12th, maybe, out of, like, the quarterback rankings this offseason for, like, transfer portal quarterbacks. And, I mean, I don't know how high he was on the Badgers list, but he was not high on most people's lists. He was seen as like a rental. I mean, he truly was a rental. He's like exactly the same scenario as Tyler Van Dyke the year before. So
a rental that crashed.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Wait, so do we know the actual amount that Indiana has invested into NIL in their players?
You're never going to know for sure, but there are pretty good ballpark estimates
crazy.
That most teams know. Well, because it's like, I mean, it's like coaching salaries in the NFL.
Like, it is a... But it is. See, I think of it as it should be. I'm not saying it should be like a salary cap, but like we know in baseball, for a perfect example, last week we saw the whole breakdown of the revenue that every single team in the MLB had and how much they spent. Like, I would love to see the amount of money that each college football team brings in for NIL. It would be shocking, I'm sure.
So this is just what I'm kind of looking at here, but. For basketball, they had a budget over $10 million.
Wisconsin.
Hoosiers. No, Hoosiers.
Which makes sense. Which makes sense for Indiana. I mean, Indiana basketball, they have a deep passion for it. And football, they obviously have shown that too. I think it's more of typically you can tell based off university. It's more so they spread it out to multiple sports. Like Texas A&M has been known to be like a big spender in NIL for a long, like since NIL became a thing and way before NIL was a thing, if we're being honest. Whereas like Wisconsin, I mean, we know that like before NIL, like they were not in the pay-for-play business. Like that was not a thing for the Badgers. They were very above bar all the time. And they felt like they were still using that same mentality that we found out like after the NIL came around. Like Chris McIntosh and even others at the university said their whole approach was like, we're not going to pay players NIL up front to try and induce them to come to Wisconsin because at the time, like that was against the rules. But everyone, if they're breaking the rules, then it's not really against the rule because if the rule doesn't work, then nobody's going to follow it. So they were only going to try and pay players once they got here, and if they performed well, then you would reward them with NIL benefits, whereas most other programs and the teams like Indiana, who are really building up programs, were doing what everyone is doing now, where they were just paying players to come to their university, come play for their football team. So the Badgers are super behind the curveball on the NIL recruitment side. Coaching hasn't been much better, but it's fair to say that like if Luke Fickell had a better roster and a better NIL fund, or a more organized NIL effort maybe, then things would be like, I do not think that they are only a 2-win team this year. I think this year then they could have competed for like legitimately 6 wins this year if they had an actual NIL infrastructure, I think.
Well, see, if they should have been able to compete for 6 wins this year, 5 or 6, just with competent coaching. Like beating Maryland should have been on the table.
Really?
Beating Minnesota should not feel like if you're competently coached, they should have been able to beat Maryland.
Probably,
like, to me, like, Maryland is not and then I think...
Even after losing Billy Edwards, you would say that? Like, I think that's the one game you could make an argument, like, if Billy Edwards plays and he's healthy, and if they have, like you're saying, competent coaching, I think if they have both, you'd feel pretty good about it. But without Billy Edwards, like, Danny O'Neal was not painting himself in glory at all in that game, no matter what he was being coached to do.
And I know they like this, the new kid, Hunter Simmons, but if they got the performance...
Like is a strong term.
Do they like him?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Luke Fickell admitted after, I believe, the Iowa game, like they should have considered possibly taking him out. And now they're basically running a 2-quarterback system, which is disgusting.
I was going to say, they did, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they had to do.
It's really bad.
It's pathetic.
And so, but my point was that that if they brought the same effort to Maryland that they brought to Michigan, I think they win that game. Because let's not forget, special teams was an abject disaster.
That's true.
The defense is good. So, like, this team can't dig out of a hole. They don't have the offense to do that.
The defense is good.
But I've seen well-coached...
They're not the worst thing on the field.
Compared to everything else, they are.
I guess. But, I mean, they are giving up chunks of yard to any team who can throw the ball even remotely well.
I know, but again, that goes back to being well-coached.
Perhaps.
That if they just... they're allowing these big splash plays against Maryland in dumb times. Just the worst timing.
I will say when it comes to the NIL and the recruitment, too, like one thing that we forgot about from this past offseason is that they lost 6 defensive backs in the portal. Xavier Lucas wasn't the only guy who left this offseason, right? I mean, none of those games were like household names. Those were guys who were supposed to be the next people up in the defensive backfield. That entire room got depleted. And it's because of that, you can feel it every Saturday, especially without Nazir Forkurian out there, who was like a starter for the last 2 years, and now him not being there. Like, Ricardo Hallman looks pretty mortal, does not look like the NFL prospect we once thought he was.
Nope.
I don't know if that's on him or just because everyone around him is just also terrible at their job. At this point, it's really hard to tell. Like Molly said, chicken or the egg. Are the players just not good enough, or is the coaching just that lacking?
I think Ricardo Hallman was good last year, and he's been good for how many years now? I think his play is a direct reflection of how horrendous this program is.
Yeah.
And that is due to coaching.
Yeah.
844-770-3776. That's the Cardinals Talking text line. This is more. Our Siding Unlimited poll question. Does Badger football have a bigger problem with coaching or NIL/recruiting? Right now, 61% of you say coaching. As we had to break here, though, I will share that Indiana, according to Google, invests about $21 million Indiana has committed to funding $21 million in revenue sharing to athletics, an estimated 70 to 75% of that budget going to football. And Mark Cuban's been a big donor. They have had other donors. They've also done cost cutting by cutting sports programs and positions within the university. So that's the other thing. There could be some discussions about programs getting turned into club sports that Chris McIntosh has been trying to avoid. My understanding, sports like wrestling don't get much anyways, so turning them into a club sport is probably inevitable because people around wrestling tell me Penn State or some of these other schools will spend on wrestling 10x.
Penn State, Iowa, all the big
they spend 10x what the Badgers spend. So it really is a have or have not. So it might just make more sense for Wisconsin to turn the Olympic sports into club sports so that way they're not responsible for funding them and giving them NIL money.
But then what does that mean? Does that mean that those kids get their scholarships taken away?
I think you can do it slowly. I don't think you have to cut these kids.
Sucks.
Yeah, I don't think you have to cut these kids. I think the ones that are here, you'd let them finish it out. Just wouldn't have scholarships to give going forward.
I don't know if I love that.
it's the way of the way.
I think they got to find other solutions.
They're out of solutions, and there's less and less.
They're out of solutions. It feels like they haven't even tried.
Yeah, but I'm saying like Indiana, these other schools that are doing better at NIL, they've cut these sports.
Well, I'm saying Wisconsin, Ryan. Wisconsin hasn't even tried. It doesn't feel like.
What do you mean? Chris McIntosh put out that letter asking fans to donate to the NIL funds and to give Luke Fickell another. They're trying, Molly. They're giving it their darndest.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you talking about?
Barry on the Barry Alvarez show the other day, he was saying that there's plenty of options out there that you can do. He suggested, what if you even tacked on an additional 50 cents on every single ticket? That brings in, if you fill up the I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm just saying he came up with an idea right there on the spot. I'm sure that there's plenty of other ideas rather than just cutting funding towards other programs for lesser known sports.
I will say there's a university down in Tennessee who's very competitive and has been in the top 15 the last 2 years who did the same thing, and I think their fans weren't very happy about it, but fans down in Knoxville.
But guess what? They're still
filling the stadium, and fans down in Knoxville really care about the Volunteers, and they want more than anything.
And they have a pretty
for them to be
damn good quarterback.
And they do have a pretty damn good quarterback. Do you know his name, Ollie?
I can't remember, but him and UCLA flip-flopped.
Yes, they did. They did
and
trade
now
quarterbacks. Joey Aguilar and Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah.
Flip-flopped.
As we go to break here, UCLA is the thorn in my side as a Badger fan. They fire their head coach. Tough. The team turns around. They win 3 games. The new interim head coach has more success against top 25 teams and in conference than Luke Fickell has had, and that's with competent coaching. Mm-hmm. They brought in a quarter.
Is that the one that hurts the most, or is it the one just south of our border, too, if we're being really honest?
Illinois
is the one that makes me feel the worst, because it's like that's what Wisconsin should still be today. Like Wisconsin, we thought we couldn't win with that model anymore with Paul Chryst, and it's like what Brett's doing with Illinois, it's just what Paul Chryst was doing, but just with more NIL. I mean, that's essentially what it is.
Honestly, if Paul Chryst would have just bought into the NIL, we wouldn't be in this problem. Like that Matt getting rid of Paul Chryst was not. But it needed to be done, but Paul. From what I understand, the recruiting and the NIL buy-in that was needed from Paul and maybe even Jim Leonard wasn't fully there.
No, it was not.
But the problem...
But also, what if his buy-in stems from whoever is above him?
Well, Mac came in and that's and was telling him we need to do this. And so I'll say this, that to your point, Mac maybe had the wrong idea, being like, we need to get rid of Paul Chryst because the head coach doesn't know how to run NIL and we don't know how to do all this and all the recruiting stuff. When it should have been, I need to build a system around my head coach that his only job is to make sure we have the right players to pay, but the actual fundraising and the recruitment and the buying of these players would not be done by the coach. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be, and I don't think that that's how Wisconsin's had it set up.